Lyla June is also the daughter of Pat McCabe, and Lyla was supposed to be part of this film
Yes.
project, and sadly, she was not feeling well the day we were supposed to film and visit her. So we have the honor to have Lyla with us today, as the intention also of this week together is to expand beyond the film. The film touches on so many threads, and it's so hard within 90 minutes to go in depth in all that wanted to be shared. So that's why we are having this gathering, and so powerful.
Yeah.
The opening, so powerful.
Yeah. And we met Lyla originally at Sand, right? She was present. You were presenting at Sand many years ago on our main stage, and it was such a joy and an honor to.
And in this next session of 20 minutes, Lyla will be sharing her story with embracing trauma healing, bloodlines, through her own journey of healing.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your patience. So, greetings, my relatives and my kin. I'm from the Nanisht Ejikachitni clan of the Dene Nation. We are also incorrectly known as Navajo. And that Nanisht Ejikachitni clan I get from my mother, because we get our last names from our mothers, not from our fathers. And I think my mom is here too, Pat McCabe. And that's my first clan, our mother line. But then we also honor our other three grandparents as well. So the second one I honor is my father's mother, my father's mother's Southern Cheyenne lineage from Oklahoma, Anadarko, Oklahoma. And my mother's father is Salt Clan of the Dene Ado Bilagane Dishanale, and my father's father is Scottish Clan. So I'm also a musician. I'm also a total nerd. I do a lot of research, primarily on Indigenous food systems, and also Indigenous curriculum development, and also looking into anthropology, generally speaking, environmental anthropology. So did a lot of that academic stuff, still doing it a little bit. But I think most of all, I just try to be a servant of the Creator and try to be of service in this one brief lifetime that we get to be of service to Creator and to the people and to the land. So happy to be here. I think what I wanted to talk about today briefly is embracing the whole, which to me means embracing your whole self. And I introduced all my clans because that's customary to do. But it's interesting how my Diné culture, which we always introduce all our clans, is the thing that led me to honoring my full self, which includes, as you heard, Scottish lineages. So for a long time, before I knew my culture really well and before I knew how to introduce myself in Denebazad, the Navajo language, I wouldn't admit that I was part Scottish. I would leave that part out because I had always kind of been taught that like my native side was the important side and the Scottish side. In fact, I didn't even know I was Scottish for quite a long time. I had to go figure that out. And I'm sure in probably other European bloodlines as well, but that's my most direct one, is the Johnstons from Annandale, Scotland. And in any case, that really opened my eyes to like, oh wait, I'm also European, and as a Native woman who primarily identified as Native and kind of looked Native, I didn't ever really have to acknowledge my European side. But when I really dug into my culture as a Dene woman on my mother's side, ironically, that is what helped me connect to my father's side. Because introducing my clans, I had to really look at that. And I was sort of taught that that's the colonizer, that's the bad side, and like, don't even mention it. But I started to research it because I'm a very curious person. And I said, I want to know more about this, you know? So I went home to Texas, my father's side. I talked to my aunties, I talked to my uncle. I really researched where we were from, what's going on, who are these people. I never really even met my father's side very much. And then my mother and I actually accidentally started teaching at a place called Devon, England, um, at Schumacher College, and which is in what's now called England. And my Scottish family had intermarried with that area, and we actually have a family manor or a family house in this little tiny town called Devon, England. And so I went there accidentally. I didn't even know I was directly, my family used to live there, maybe centuries ago. I don't know. And then I came back from Schumacher, was doing my thing. And then I went to my father's cousin's house, and they opened up the family tree book and we're looking at photos and stuff. And they said, "Oh, and this is our family manor. It's in a little place called Devon, England." And I was like, "Oh my God, I was just there." And so I think there was something drawing me to be like, okay, you have to reckon with this part of yourself. You have to understand what this is. So it was about embracing my whole self. And the more I dug deeper into European history and culture, the more I realized we had a lot more similarities with Indigenous peoples in Turtle Island, or what some people call the USA, than I expected. We had a lot of parallels, a lot of similarities, such as really this ancient feminine culture that was attacked and tried to be obliterated. Specifically, the women who were persecuted as witches. I became very, very invested in understanding this very challenging period of history where women were burned alive, women were drowned alive, women were tortured in torture chambers, and the whole 9 yards. And I started to really get in touch with those grandmothers, and I could feel how much they had been through. And I could feel not only the persecution of women as so-called witches, which actually means wise one, the word witch literally means wise. So these were the healers, these were the medicine women, these were the, just like in Dene culture, our women were attacked, and so when you attack the women, you also attack the men who love them, because imagine seeing your daughter get burned alive, your wife get burned alive, your sister get burned alive. Imagine what that would do to a man. It would drive him completely crazy, and I think it did. And the amount of pain and trauma that both the feminine and the masculine, if you will, carries from that time period, really felt so similar to how women were treated here, hundreds of years later, and how that trauma that Europeans had been through was in some cases exported around the world to other female-centric societies. But yeah, the goddess cultures were really the culture of Europe, honoring women. I learned actually I just learned this recently, how in the Celtic language, the whole alphabet comes after the names for trees. And a lot of the indigenous cultures of Europe, such as the Celtic culture, the Gaelic culture. I saw a native Scotlander here. Hello, hello. The Welsh culture, the Welsh people these were all like the natives of what we now call England. They were pushed back into the hinterlands. And they say that when they would go into Scotland, they would kill the bards first, the people who carried the stories. and they would bury them face down so their stories would die with them. They were the first to be killed. The bards were the storytellers, the singers. And so I started being like, whoa, there's a lot more here than what I was told. I was just told Europeans were mean. Don't even mention that you're descendant from them. But the more I dug deeper, the more I realized, wow, a third of Europe died overnight with the bubonic plague. Imagine if a third of us all here died overnight. That's a big trauma. And we kind of had that with COVID, but not nearly on the scale of the Black Death, as it were, or the bubonic plague. And so that similarity of the epidemics that were really brought to the what we call the Americas or Turtle Island, we had that parallel of just huge number of us disappearing. A nasty skin death, smallpox, chickenpox, bubonic plague, or not chickenpox, measles. You know, all these things were really hard on Indigenous peoples here and in what we now call Europe. Even the word Europe, and some debate about this, but there is a character within Greco-Roman mythology called Europa, and she was kidnapped by Zeus, abducted, taken to an island, and abused and bore his children. So even the word Europe, some argue, is encoded with this domination of women. And that's not who we really are as Europeans. So I started to dig even deeper, and they found these clay effigies throughout Europe in the shape of a woman. And they're thought to honor the sanctity of women and the sanctity of the earth. And they found one in Germany back in 2009. They radiocarbon dated this little thing. Guess how old it was? It was 40,000 years old. So this is how long ago our European ancestors were shaping the earth into the form of a woman and honoring women, honoring the sanctity of women. And of course, my good friend Rianne Eisler wrote an incredible book called The Chalice and the Blade, which is an archaeological analysis tracking how European culture went from a chalice culture of abundance and sharing and partying and communion and joy to a blade culture with fortification and dog eat dog and just all out warfare. And so the more I researched the periods of bloodshed in Europe, the more I realized that Europe had been through all out war for a nearly 2,000 year period of time. And that trauma, right, is exported around the world. And so I think we as Europeans are often cast as the bad guys. And to be fair, we have been some bad guys. There's no getting around that. We've made some egregious mistakes. And within that truth, we have to understand that we have also a lot to grieve, a lot that we went through to bend and contort and break a human spirit into this paradigm of hierarchy. Took a lot of work. It took a lot of work on the side of the coyote spirit to trick us into this paradigm of hierarchy. It took a lot of violence and a lot of all out terror, nothing less than that. So I could go on, but my point here is that whether you descend from what we now call Africa, or you descend from what we now call Europe, or you descend from what we now call Asia, or what some call Australia, whether you descend from Turtle Island or Abya or the Pacific Islands or the Arctic, no matter who you are a beautiful person, and you come from beautiful roots. And sometimes we got to go back farther than others to find those beautiful roots, because some have been under chaos longer than others, extreme chaos. But that we have to, what my native elder said is, have compassion and understanding for everybody. She said, have compassion, understanding for Europeans, because they were in all out war for 2,000 years. And they were in a situation where they, there wasn't enough, and everybody was against each other, which is the foundation of modern economics today. I took my economics class at Stanford. I was 18 years old. I go to class, and the first thing they say is, the founding assumptions of economics are there's not enough for everyone, and everybody is acting in self-interest. That's what we base all of our models off of, these two assumptions. And I was like, wow, really? That's your whole thing, that there's not enough for everyone and everyone's out for themselves. No wonder we're screwed. If I'm at like the top university right now and this is what you're teaching, no wonder we're all confused. Because in Native culture, we say there's enough for everyone, and everyone's here to live for the whole. Everyone's here to live for each other and to be selfless and generous and a warrior, to be brave and to be a warrior for your people. But then when I thought about Europe, yeah, that's where they were coming from. There wasn't enough for everyone, and everyone was out for themselves. I mean, they had to be. You didn't have food. You weren't guaranteed food the next day. I mean, there was an extreme famine. And so we have to think deeper than the time of Napoleon, deeper than the time of King Louis, and into those deeper roots of our true essence. And I think by helping us as Europeans understand our trauma, we can then stop accidentally inflicting it on others. And we have to heal ourselves deeply, and understand the deeper history and love ourselves. The last thing I was going to say is that I think what helped me have this spirit of forgiveness is that I myself was forgiven greatly. I started doing drugs when I was 11 years old. I was a bit of a menace to society. Even at Stanford, I was, getting good grades by day, but I was a total party girl, totally getting myself and others into terrible situations. I wouldn't say I was a good person. I think I was trying to be, but there was so much trauma that I wasn't really able to shine the way I maybe was meant to. And when the elders found me, they didn't say, oh, you've been doing drugs, you've been shoplifting, you've been lying and cheating and stealing. You need to go to jail. They didn't tell me that. What they told me was, Lyla, we're sorry. We're sorry you grew up with drugs and alcohol around you since the day you were born. We're sorry that you experienced some childhood traumas that made you exacerbate your addictions even more. We're sorry that you were sexually abused. Sorry for not giving proper warning. I'm actually totally doing okay with that. But at the time, I hadn't healed from it. And they said, oh, sorry that happened to you since you were a little girl. And it was just so much compassion and understanding. And it reminds me of that song, Amazing Grace. Even a wretch like me, Creator had so much grace for, so much compassion for, and forgiveness. And so I think that was so transformative in my life, that the Creator and the elders could still love a wretch like me, as it were, that it made me curious how we could start applying that to the whole world. How can we love the worst of us? How can we love the worst of ourselves? How can we dig deeper and find out where those behaviors came from? How can we love ourselves and each other with a deeper grace? And I'm still not an expert at that. I still get snappy and pissy, and I still get I'm still struggle with things, but I know that's my goal. And my goal is to be as forgiving as my elders were to me. My goal is to, and that's ironically what got me sober, was their unconditional love. And now I'm 13 years sober. and I live for the creator and I live for the people. So ironically, when we punish and beat people down, that doesn't always liberate them from their stuff. But when we love people unconditionally, that can be such a transformative medicine that they can actually rebound in really incredible ways. So I will go ahead and stop there. But thank you all so much for your time. And I hope you'll have a great afternoon, morning, wherever you are. My prayers are with you.
Thank you for bringing all these different threads. And this is also alive as we have traveled everywhere around the world. Everything you spoke to is, we've witnessed people grappling, asking questions, looking, going back to ancestry. Feels like it's the time for this piece of work collectively to do and walk. And thank you for bringing the compassion at the end as well.
And the question you pose about the European ancestry, to go deep behind, is the main question we receive from white people everywhere when they see the movie. And it's so
how do we remember? How do we remember the times before Christianity, the times where we were connected to Mother Earth, which was most of the history of European history. This last chapter is
modernity is probably a few thousand years.
a few thousand years old.